Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 83, Jermaine the Troglodyte Cartographer. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Jonathan Blevins' table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. Before I introduce my guest, I'd like to give a shout out to my first sponsor, Plus One EXP. Tony Vicenda is the mastermind behind his mastercraft of beard balms, game design, and community building. He's got beard balms named after all the basic stats from D&D, so get a can, apply it to your face, and smell the sweet aroma and the sweet victory that comes along with increased strength, dexterity, charisma, and more. Beards and Beyond is the indie RPG that helped to launch this brand, but Tony's collaborated and developed several other projects, including Repugnant, Eye Toaster, Down We Go, Through the Void, Vamp Nugula, and Brand Standing. If you support Plus One EXP either by buying something on the website or going to tonyplusone.itch.io, it all helps funnel into the Plus One Forward program, which seeks to support additional indie tabletop content creators to continue making awesome stuff. I'd highly encourage you to follow Tony and Plus One EXP on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, in order to keep up with all the various projects that are being worked on, as well as upcoming interviews, one-shots, and actual plays of some of these other games. And please, if you don't mind, go to plus1exp.com, and when you see that box for the affiliate code, type in Randolph when you're buying a beard balm or a beard RPG in order to get some savings on your purchase at no extra cost to you. Again, that code is Randolph on the website, plus1exp.com. Hello, mystery guest. How are you doing today? Would you care to introduce yourself to our podcast audience? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
Well, it's great to be here. I am Jonathan Bearded Blevins. I am married with 3 kids. I just started a company called Little Flower Media about 7 months ago, October 2021, trying to use new media to bring light into the often dark places of the internet using new media platforms like social media and Twitch.
Yeah, and speaking of Twitch, you kind of have some famous siblings, as it were. Am I correct in this understanding?
Yeah, it's actually Tyler, aka Ninja, one of the biggest streamers in the world, kind of launched the platform, kind of put streaming and video gaming on the map worldwide. Obviously, it was already a big thing, but to make Twitch really more known, he's my little brother, and he's the reason he inspired me to start my company. And encourage me myself to start streaming. So I started streaming about 4 years ago on Twitch, and then launched the business 7 months ago after about 15 years of Catholic parish ministry.
That's awesome. I was just rewatching some stuff that you had the opportunity to participate in recently online on YouTube. I know you were on the God in Gaming YouTube show that the Word on Fire Institute put out, and then recently there's been a collaboration between Word on Fire and Max Studios with University of St. Thomas. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And man, what a great partnership. University of St. Thomas and Houston is, in my opinion, my biased opinion. I've been working with them for 6 months. They are just leading Catholic innovation with evangelization right now, using digital media and new media, and that partnership with Word on Fire and with the videos that we were able to do with other social media. I hate using the word influencers, but other social media Catholic influencers has been a really cool way to try to inspire others to bring the gospel online.
Well, this podcast, the subject of it is Dungeons and Dragons. And so we like to ask the question of, do you currently or have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before? Is it something that you're readily familiar with?
It is not. It's something that I admit in high school I made fun of, maybe even in college and maybe even 5 years ago. And then streaming on Twitch, I'm really not much of a video gamer. I enjoy video games, but I'd probably do myself a disservice when I say this because I really do. I like a lot of RPGs. And maybe we can get into that in just a little bit, but
yeah,
I play Fortnite right now and Madden, right? And I love sports. And so I always roasted my friends who played Dungeons and Dragons. And then recently from streaming, I've been invited. I've met a lot of really cool people who I consider some of my very best friends. I've gotten to meet them in real life as well. And they play every week. And they're like, John, you would love it. You have to do it. It's just storytelling. You love stories. And I'm like, I'm not. So I'm more open now than I ever have been, but I've never played before. And I still am unfamiliar kind of with how it works. Although I want one last note. I saw Community. And the Community, I don't know if you've seen the show Community.
Yes.
That
binged
show,
it early on in the pandemic.
Yeah, same. And that show made me really open to it as well because it was hilarious and they seemed to have a lot of fun with it.
Harmon is the co-creator, I think, of that show. He also has done his own Dungeons and Dragons show. It's called Harmon Quest. It was kind of like on one of those offshoot media things, but they kind of use an older edition of D&D because it's the dungeon master who's literally rolling everybody else's dice. But it's like comedians all sitting around a table and they're like telling these, ridiculous stories. Professional grade A comedians could bust out on the fly with their top-notch improv skills and stuff. That
is hilarious. I feel like I'm a decent storyteller, but that would probably put me to shame.
I was going to say, with you already being on Twitch and everything like that, are you familiar with the D&D community that is just ever present on the platform of Twitch itself?
A little bit more now, even in the last few weeks. I was just on the Bearded Nerd podcast. I don't know if you know that guy. He's a Catholic dude who does some stuff with D&D as well. And so he recommended some people to check out. So I've been watching a couple of streams on there, but still very unfamiliar. Part of me feels like all I would do is try to kill everything at all times. And I feel like that's what most people who are experts at D&D hate characters like me.
Well, yeah, I think that, the term
shoots rocket launcher.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the term is murder hobo that we would use in a D&D because like you don't have a character backstory and you just want to kill everything, which is fine. A good dungeon master can kind of roll with that and then just present the logical consequences of your actions when suddenly no shopkeepers want to sell you anything. Everyone gives you the cold shoulder and suddenly you're not really welcome anywhere.
See, okay, this is fun. I think that would be funny.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if that's the game you agree to play, then yeah, you'll just have to deal with those kind of ramifications. The biggest D&D show that is on Twitch is Critical Role. If you've never heard of that one before, that's of course professional voice actors. They've been doing their show on Twitch for years now at this point. They're in their third campaign. So if you want to call it like a season. So yeah. It's a very intricate story and even elements of this story harken back to their original game that they started with, their very first campaign they did when they started broadcasting it live for the world to see and stuff. So
that's
but
cool.
Of course, there's, they're probably one of the biggest ones, but of course there's all kinds of cool actual plays. They call them stories that much like video gamers who stream on Twitch and then, people tune in to watch people play games. It's kind of like the same thing with D&D. You can invite people in to kind of watch your group of heroes, of characters around a table, maybe in physical space or in virtual space. Audience members kind of watching in and, getting hooked on the story, like a pulp adventure radio play.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Of course, this podcast is called Sidekicks and Side Quests, so we always like to ask the question of, who's your favorite NPC? Whether they're from an RPG, a video game, or if maybe you have a particular sidekick character from literature, history, film, or television, etc. And why is this character your favorite?
I love this question, and I didn't know which way I was going to go, video games or literature. But one of my very favorite games ever is Final Fantasy IX. I loved it. I've really only played Final Fantasy 7, 9, and then a game called Legend of Legaia, which is my all-time favorite game. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was 4 discs, PlayStation, one of the best RPGs ever. My brother calls it his favorite game as well. But FF9 was the game that got me into RPGs. I never thought I could be interested in care at all. And then maybe the same way I do about some of my favorite characters from Lord of the Rings. But a guy named Adalbert Steiner. Are you familiar with FF9?
I am totally unfamiliar with Final Fantasy as a franchise. I maybe bought
I feel like you would love it.
15. I bought 15, I think, for my wife as a present. That's the one where you're on the car and you're on the desert highway and stuff like that.
Okay.
But that's about the only one I know. But otherwise, I know it's a JRPG, so it follows the standard formulas of how Japanese role-playing games are kind of developed.
And it was so good. And it's like the first time I ever cared about a bunch of different characters in a game. And Steiner is like this knight who is trying to protect everyone, but definitely trying to protect the princess. And he seems to do a good job of protecting her, but never gets to do all the things he necessarily wants to do in the video game. But he still always does what he's supposed to do. And I just love it. And I'm watching the Vikings show right now, The Last Kingdom, and it makes me really just appreciate knights in general a little bit more. But he was my favorite character, either him or this character called Quina, who's just kind of like this very large, long-tongued, like alien-looking creature who's just kind of funny in the video game. But those are my two favorites.
And then along with that, we like to ask, what's been one of your favorite side quests, whether it's from an RPG, a video game, literature, film, television, etc., and why has it been one of your favorite side quests?
Yeah, and so I'm gonna use the same game, Final Fantasy IX. That's one of the only games I ever played that I actually did the side quests. Because I'm the guy. When I was growing up, I was the guy who just wanted to beat the game. I want to beat the game. I don't care about the side quests. And my brothers are both like all into the side quests. They could play games forever and ever and ever. But for Final Fantasy IX, I did the side quests, all of them. And there was one called Excalibur 2. And the reason I did it was because it was a challenge. And it's the reason I play a game I'm competitive. I love sports. I like battle royales because there's a one winner at the end. And in this particular side quest, you have to get all the way to Hades in under 12 hours without doing any other side quests. And so it's this competition of you have to like just sprint across the map, dodge all these other fights, get to a place at the end, and in order to collect I don't even remember I think you collected like an ultimate weapon in order to do it. And I failed. I only tried it 3 times because I was a kid. My parents would let me play video games for 12 hours.
Right.
You could take breaks back then, I think, because the disc would remember where you were. Remember memory cards?
I do, but of course, my father had a personal vendetta against the Sony Corporation, so we never actually had any PlayStation devices in our household. Maybe my cousins did, but we were strictly growing up a Nintendo household. So that was about as advanced as we really got, before I went off to college and, bought my own Xbox and stuff.
For sure. And by that time, I had the memory in there. So I did. I guess I didn't have to play 12 hours straight because of the memory cards, but I just remember being short, like getting it in 13 hours every single time. And finally, the time that I did it, I was the only one in my family that got the cool weapon. So love that side quest.
And then rounding out the personal interview section, what are you passionate about and why?
I like this question. I have a million answers. My go-to is the Detroit Lions, but I'm not going to use that answer because I'm a glutton for punishment. I like the Lions. My passion is people. I have not met a person that I can't get along with and find the good in. I love learning about who people are and the things that they love and the things that motivate them, and love to be able to just listen to people and be in community and to share stories and to listen to stories. I love that. I'm wildly extroverted. So my wife and I used to do these hospitality nights every week where we just said our house is open on Thursday nights for dinner, and like 40 to 50 people a week would be showing up for dinner with their kids and stuff. And I just love that, being around people and trying to love people and help out in any way that I possibly can. So I think that's what I'm passionate about: community and people.
Wow, that just sounds intense. Like, oh yeah, just come on over. And then, 40 or 50 people later, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm just going to go run to the store and get some more ice.
Yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
exactly how it went for we expected it to be like a once a month thing. People like, we just were saying our house is open on Thursday nights. We want it to be the place where if you're having a hard day, the Blevins house is open on Thursdays. The first week we did it, we had like 25 or 26 different couples show up. I made dinner for like 4 So I was like, gotta go to the store.
Hey, I'm gonna go run to the drive-thru real quick. I think I'm gonna need to get like 30 burgers.
Yeah,
So.
and I was working for the church. My wife was staying home with our kids. I was like, I can't feed this many people, but God provided somehow. We just kept having it every week, and it ended up being one of the coolest things we ever did. We'll probably start it up again here soon.
Well, we've had a wonderful opportunity to learn more about my guest, and now I think it's time to head into a segment that I like to call NPC Creation. NPC Creation is brought to you by you, the podcast audience, and our patrons on Patreon. So now is the time where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, Katie Downey, aka Goblin Katie, we say cheers. Again, this is for patrons who donate $2 or more a month. Katie is actually our highest tier, wealthy patron, $4 a month. So that means she's able to introduce an element of chance to our random tables here at NPC Creation. So we might get to use these here today. If you want to learn more and join the cheapest podcast Patreon community, please check the show notes below, go to my website, or go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests to find out more about our 3 tiers and help us expand our operations at the Levitating Platter in this demiplane and worlds beyond. All right. So this is the part of the show where we get to make up a character. And we kind of have a couple of different ways we can go about it. If you have like an idea that you kind of want to flesh out and have me help you work through the questions, we have random tables. So whether you have physical dice or you want to pull up a website that'll allow you to roll virtual dice, we could randomly generate a character and then kind of discover and formulate the story, or a combination of both. It's up to you. What are you interested in making today here in NPC Creation?
What's more fun?
Honestly, I will tell you that more times than not, people who just come in with no expectations, they roll the dice randomly, and they're just told what the thing is, and then they're like, okay, I have to sit here and think, like, how do I make this into a coherent, interesting character? And I think the spirit guides it too, because there have been times on the show where I'm like, oh man, where's like the punch come for this character? And then just the dice rolls where it will, and then we're like, oh my gosh, yes, that makes this character perfect. So, you know,
okay, let's do that. Let's roll the dice.
Whether you have physical dice or you can pull up a website real quick. I think Google will let you just roll dice, or plenty of websites that'll let you do it. Just a standard array, which if you're going to be playing D&D soon, this will be a quick way to learn about all the different kinds of dice that we use in the game. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves, what is going to be our character's name? And we determine this by rolling a 20-sided dice, or a D20. So if you want to give that a roll, let me know what you get.
I just did, and it's 14.
14. Okay. Your name was provided by previous guest Brady Effler, Jermaine. So kind of like
no way.
Jermaine, like from Flight of the Conchords. Yeah.
Yes.
Jermaine.
Jenny.
Yeah.
I just said hi. Woman in the park.
Awesome.
I know every song.
All right, next question. What is the ancestry of our character? Like, are they going to be a human, an elf, a dwarf, etc.? If you want to roll 2d10s or a d100, that will determine what is the ancestry of our particular Jermaine.
Okay, I'm going to do the 100. 78.
78 as I scroll down the list. Oh, Jermaine is a troglodyte.
What is a troglodyte?
Well, if memory serves me, because I believe there's been only one other troglodyte made on this podcast. Troglodytes, often referred to as stink meat by the Dwargar, dark dwarves, were cave-dwelling reptilian humanoids with a barbaric culture centered around food and scent. The stench of an angry or frightened troglodyte was so foul that it sickened all living creatures nearby, even after the troglodyte had died. So I like to think of them as like underground reptilian humanoids. That's what one source says the lore is, but the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons is that you can kind of take it or leave it, or just kind of make up your own thing. So Jermaine doesn't have to necessarily fit that kind of mold. Jermaine could be completely different.
A troglodyte Viking.
Could be. And, you know, if we want to determine what that job or role in society is going to be, why don't you go ahead and just roll a regular 10-sided dice and see what kind of job Jermaine has in society, whether it's an underground, underdark society, or maybe they live on the surface world.
He's a 1.
1. Okay, so this answer was provided by previous guest Harper Hayes, cartographer. So Jermaine, the troglodyte, makes maps for a living.
Which, I mean, there's an advantage to being underground for that, but
True,
definitely you
yeah.
have to go above ground as well.
True.
Right?
Right. Could have very extensive maps of the Underdark, as they like to call it, subterranean realm of the D&D world.
Jermaine, the Troglodyte Cartographer.
And then the last thing we're going to roll before we take a pause on the dice rolling for a bit is we need to figure out how old the character is. If you want to roll an 8-sided dice, that will kind of give us the age range category.
A 6.
Elder. So 6 is elder. So kind of a little, has been around for a while. So yeah, so we got Jermaine, Troglodyte, Cartographer, Elder. So now the question is, describe the physical appearance of Jermaine. When you think of Jermaine, what do you imagine? What do you visualize?
All right. I am seeing like a, can I describe it to something, a different type of character that I'm familiar with? I'm seeing Feraligatr from Pokemon Go, from Pokemon. So like he's massive, got a long tail, but he's green, not blue. Okay. And he's got like a long Mr. Miyagi type beard. And for some weird reason, he's wearing sunglasses. Okay. Maybe because he lives underground, he's sensitive to the light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and he's advanced in years, I suppose.
And he's advanced in years. And he's got a cane as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Does Jermaine adopt any clothing or
no? Jermaine is he's like lizard naked. He looks so rugged that everyone trusts him, even though he's naked, because he has clearly been around.
So just natural troglodyte, is confident in his abilities as a map maker. No one ever questions him or doubts.
But he has a beard. But he has a long, thin beard.
Oh, okay, I see.
Which adds to the wisdom. And then he's got the sunglasses as well. Okay. You're picturing this, aren't you? I might be butchering this completely, but this is a blast.
Okay. No. That's fine. And you were describing the colors. If I remember the last time that I read up on troglodytes, I think they have the ability to kind of shift their coloration. So maybe Jermaine prefers remaining green versus blue or anything like that. Bodies coated with rough leathery scales and normally possessed a grayish brown skin tone, although they had the chameleon-like ability to change their coloration. Lizard-like heads.
Yeah. So, and this one's a little on the taller side, cool. 6 foot.
Okay.
And he's eaten his fair share. So the average poundage is about 150, but he's up towards 220.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So kind of rocking a dad bod.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a dad bod going on.
Okay. Very cool. Are we imagining him in one of these underdark, sort of like subterranean type civilization areas? Or is he above ground? Since he's adopting the sunglasses kind of thing, or what are you imagining?
He's an interesting cartographer because he's not really caught up with the times, but that's okay because he's the greatest. So he's underground. He makes his maps on cave walls.
Oh, interesting.
And so he will walk people through the cave walls and show them everything you need to know, and he'll answer any question they have. And he explains it with such great detail, and it's so beautiful that they see it for a few minutes, they understand it, and they leave. Yeah, so he's underground and he's doing this on in a cave.
Interesting. Okay, so he's actually using the natural landscape around him to actually make these maps. So he's not having to transcribe them on parchment or vellum or anything like that. He's just like, oh, let me walk you over to the wall, and oh, you're asking about this part of the cave system. Well, you'll see this is how it's all diagrammed out and stuff.
Yes, 100%. And this is a massive cave system. So he's got maps from all over the world, everywhere. He's well traveled. Yeah, so similar to he's just kind of old school, like a grandpa who refuses to use Google Maps.
Okay. Yeah, these kids come in with their books and their charts and their charcoal pencils. It's like, just give me a good wall and I can do it.
100%.
If you had to describe Jermaine with 3 adjectives, what 3 adjectives would you use?
Oh wow, 3 adjectives. He's bold. Okay, he's bold, like a Viking. He's gonna be himself. Because of his experience, he doesn't care. He doesn't care too much about how he treats people because he's an expert. Nobody knows maps like he does. So he'll be very bold. He'll tell people if they stink, if he doesn't like their outfit, if he doesn't like their accent. But he's also he's hilarious. He's hilarious. He can make anybody laugh. The most serious person in the room, he's making them laugh for sure. And he's also wholesome.
Oh,
wholesome. Yeah, he's wholesome. He'll tell it like it is, but he does so in a way that is relatable. You know what I mean? So in his boldness, he's wholesome. He'll say, he can insult you and you might say thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're taking the steady state of the lore as it is, where troglodytes are viewed as kind of like these very savage, barbaric, a constant struggle to survive in the Underdark, and the fact that Jermaine has been able to make it, you know, as this cartographer, this map doodler on cave walls and stuff like that, and incorporated into civilizations and stuff like that, I wonder how that kind of speaks to his character or his upbringing, or how he views himself and how he thinks people, you know, think of him and stuff.
Well, he's wise beyond his years, you know. He's seen a lot. He's seen a lot of devastation. He's seen a lot of war. He's seen a lot of violence, and he doesn't want any part of that. So he's kind of doing his own thing, and he doesn't have a lot of friends. A lot of people that like him, but nobody close.
All right. Well, now we get to go back to some dice rolling. The next question we have to ask ourselves is, what's a valuable item, a piece of lore, a secret, or an ideal or concept that this character subscribes to? So the first thing we get to roll for is the category. So you'll want to roll a D4 for that.
That is a 2.
2. Okay, so this is a piece of lore. And now you'll want to roll a D6, or like a regular dice.
4.
4. Okay. Your answer was provided by our Patreon patron, Goblin Katie. You have a strong understanding of the gods and their domains. So as we were kind of discussing that Jermaine is wise, you know, he's an elder, obviously, by troglodyte standards. But what do you think this means in particular for Jermaine? Is he having this strong understanding of the gods and their domains specifically for the Underdark that would be most familiar with these cultures in the area that he's in? Or is he just very learned and stuff like that as far as all the gods and their domains?
I'm going to say all of it, because he's seen war for most of his life.
Is he a very particularly religious person himself?
He's not, because he's been burned before. He believes in multiple gods, but does not like any of them. Yeah, he thinks that they're all has conversated with them before. They try to continue to get his wisdom. Listen, no, people want him on their side, but he refuses to make friends. He just wants to be doing his own thing, selling maps. But he gets courted often by different gods and by different people to try to say, hey, we need your help. You're an expert. You know this land more than anyone. How can we do these things? How can we invade? And he wants to know part of it.
You know, I know he makes his maps primarily on the walls, but to learn or have this knowledge of the gods and their domains and stuff like that, does he have a really rich library as well that he kind of keeps, you think?
He does, but it's everything that he's written.
Oh, everything he's written. So
yeah,
all from his perspective.
It's all from him. It's all him, dude. It's all him. It's like King Alfred in the Viking show that I'm watching right now, who wrote down everything so that someday someone might be able to learn about what actually happened. That's what he's doing. Okay. And he was taught how to write by his grandfather. Yeah. Okay. His grandfather, one of the only troglodytes that knew how to read and write.
What's going to be a particular quest that Jermaine would be willing to recruit or hire player characters to go and do? If you'd like to roll for that randomly, you'll get that last dice in the set, which is a D12. Or unless you're inspired, you can just kind of wing it and kind of come up with your own side quest that you think Jermaine would be willing to offer up.
I misspoke earlier. He's familiar with all gods but one.
Oh.
Yeah. Being that he lives underground, he's used to the cold and the dark. He's not a fan of the hot heat. He doesn't get along with the sun god, as it were, and refuses to travel to where you can visit the sun god. And so the side quest is to go and to map out what it looks like in the territory where the sun god resides, because Jermaine refuses to go there on his own.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's
got one wall in his cave where there's no map.
Oh, purposefully left blank.
Because he refuses to go there. And the side quest is to make sure that last cave wall can be painted with where the sun god is and the map of that area.
Interesting. Okay. So whether that means that's like an island or like just a particular section of the continent or something like that, just like a gap in the map. And so he needs a gap in the map.
And it is an island because he doesn't know how to swim.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. If you're underground, you don't really get that much experience with oceans. Maybe like with vast underground lakes or something like that, but not oceans, I suppose.
Totally.
If this is the side quest, then we obviously have to reward our players for undertaking this mission. So what's going to be the reward for the player characters should they successfully map it out and then bring the findings back to Jermaine to ascribe on the wall?
You would get Jermaine's ever-prized possession of his golden cane.
Oh, so his cane is made of gold, like solid
Well, no,
gold?
he's got two canes. He uses a wooden cane, but he has a golden cane that he uses as a weapon when necessary. He doesn't like to fight, but he can if he needs to.
Okay.
And this golden cane will give people confidence when they hold it, and also serves as like a lightsaber.
Oh, interesting.
But it's a golden cane. It's not a lightsaber, but it works like a lightsaber very weirdly.
Okay, so it like emanates a light whenever you go to it, like, attack with it and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So it's got magical properties to it then.
It has, and no one can really understand it. Even Jermaine doesn't really understand it.
Oh, interesting.
But he knows that it's valuable and that people would be able to use it and would complete the side quest for it. And he has a person that he got it from where he can go back to and get it another one should he need to.
And then also to consider the opposite, what's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure at all? What's going to be the consequence of that?
The consequence of not being able to go and find, not to be able to do the side quest?
Exactly. Yeah. Just refusing it outright. Okay. There's going to be a reaction to that. But then what happens if you fail? Like you go there and you just never draw the map, or you forget to return to him, you give him a false map or something like that. What's going to be the consequence of that?
So, the consequence of saying no to the challenge in general is just that you no longer have access to any of the maps in the cave, and he banishes you from the area.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh yeah, but the consequence for failure, for accepting the challenge and failing, or returning and lying about it and giving a false map, is that you will be made to use a wooden cane for the rest of your life. He will break your kneecaps.
Okay. So he's going to attack the party.
He's attacking 100%. And this guy, he knows how to fight. He doesn't like to, but he will if he needs to.
Okay. So it's a proper boss battle then. You're having to fight this guy with his magic cane and whatever tricks and stuff that he has that's going to help him out.
That's right.
All right. Well, we've rolled the dice. We made a completely random NPC. And now I think it's time we throw that random NPC into a segment that I like to call the Random Encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by Reaper Miniatures. They have been Texas Titans of the tabletop industry since 1994. They're right here in DFW, and they have an amazing warehouse and game store. They make everything from paints to gaming accessories, and they stream on Twitch and YouTube with tutorials and interviews. Whatever system you're running, whatever game you're playing, Reaper has a mini for you. Every time you shop with them, spend at least $40, $50 on your purchase. They're going to give you a cool new mini of the month. And it's always something new, so all the more incentive to check back often. I was recently giving another gift card from Reaper Miniatures, so thank you very much. Please, if you haven't heard by now at this point, go to Reaper's site so you can get that Kenku Bard bird character that's based off the national bird of Ukraine. Your purchase of that mini ensures that at least $7.50 from every purchase of it gets allocated towards UNICEF relief efforts in Ukraine. As well, Reaper Miniatures Bone 6 Tales from the Green Griffin has concluded on Kickstarter, but I think you can still get involved with the backer kit stuff and check out all the cool new minis that are being developed. If you visit my website or check the show notes below, you can use that link to support Sidekicks and Side Quests whenever you head on over to Reaper Miniatures. Doing so tracks the traffic, so the more traffic, the more that our powers combine. So again, go check that link below, help support the podcast, and be sure to follow Reaper Miniatures on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. All right, and so this is the section of the show where we get to do a little bit of role play, a little vignette, a little scene. This is basically where we get to play D&D for like 5 minutes. So kind of gives you that taste of what to expect whenever you yourself are playing Dungeons & Dragons. And so since you rolled the dice to create Jermaine, it's only fitting that you should be Jermaine in the scene. But the question I have is, who am I in the scene? Am I going to be one of my podcast characters that's going to meet Jermaine to then get the quest to go chart out the island of the sun god? Or am I another community member? Am I a rival? Or who do you think that I am in the scene?
Let's do the side quest. That sounds fun.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to be one of the podcast characters. We have 4 established characters already made, unless you feel like we need a different character. But we have Duncan, who is the recklessly brave, happy-go-lucky adventurer for hire. We have Sonia, who is the warrior woman. She started off as a barbarian, and she multi-classed into paladin. We have Korak, who is the lawful evil, arcane trickster rogue thief type dwarf character. And then we have Chrisley, who is the shy herbalist, botanist, wood elf, druid who recently multiclassed into cleric. And if none of those sound interesting, we can totally make up a brand new character here on the spot.
Did you say multi-class into cleric?
Yes, so a
That's
druid
amazing.
cleric.
Let's go with Duncan. I like Duncan. Duncan reminds me of me.
So after Duncan successfully returned from the Forgotten Realms back into the Prime Material universe from the multiverse podcast, he returned to our podcast universe. He was in the Forgotten Realms, now he's back. And he appeared in the office of Professor Hank, who asked him to go down to the university basement and kill the rats, so that way they didn't chew up all the lovely archives of poetry. And after he did that, he left and he got his bearings and he's back on the road. He's in familiar territory and he's happy about that. And soon he decides to take that detour and, he remembers the community where he met Israd and Maro the Great and all that. And he was like, oh, you know what? There was that other town just a little bit further down the road in the Underdark. So I feel something in my heart telling me to go that way. So he decides to kind of take a detour and he goes down into the Underdark and he's in a new community of the Underdark that he's never been to before. And he's scratching his head and he's like, well, this is all rather new to me and I don't quite know where exactly I should head. He looks around, he starts asking people like, hey, where am I going to go find a map? And they all point to this cave. It's like a business, or I don't know, maybe you have a description of what you think the residence, the business, the dwelling of where Jermaine lives. Where would Duncan find himself as he's asking around trying to find where's the best map maker in this town?
Yeah, it actually looks like a man-made cave because it's right into the bottom of a mountain that has a little arch as people walk in. And so Jermaine is there, and his goal is to be able to map out the entire world. That is, he wants to be the first troglodyte to complete his life's mission, and his life's mission is to do that. He's hoping that people will join him in these side quests to figure out what's going on with the one place that he refuses to go.
Okay.
And it's dark in there. He's going to need a flashlight or a flame, a torch of some kind so he can see. And he's got to make sure not to put that into Jermaine's eyes because he's got his sunglasses on, but one of them's broken on the left side. So you just got to be careful with Jermaine.
So Duncan's asked around this community, think like Fraggle Rock or subterranean. And so you can imagine there's like dwellings and stuff like that, but people point him towards this cave that seems to lead further into the natural mountain structure. And so Duncan looks and it's like, oh, it actually is really dark. So he has to pull out a torch and he lights the torch. He starts heading in and he looks around. What are some of the maps that Duncan's seen? Maybe he's not immediately getting the attention of Jermaine, but he's looking around and he could just see like, what exactly does he see in these maps?
Yeah, he's seeing wildly detailed maps in general with lots of different color. He's wondering how Jermaine was able to have all this different color on the walls of this cave and how detailed everything is. He's seeing towns and places that he's in, terrains that he's familiar with, but also he's seeing things that he's never seen before. He's noticing that the area he's in is much larger than he realized and wonders that how traveled Jermaine must be. Maybe thinks there's a lot of people working for Jermaine because these maps are that detailed and they're covered from the top to the bottom of these cave walls. And he's just going up and down and looking and noticing all these different colors and how detailed it is. And just is kind of wondering what Jermaine is going to look like.
And I'm imagining he's doing this and, there's like the whistling of wind going through the cave. He can hear dripping water. Duncan is just amazed. He's dumbfounded and he'll just kind of like out loud, kind of let out a whistle of impressment, of being impressed. He just says aloud. And so it echoes, of course. He's just like, truly the map maker who makes these maps is the master that, has no equal. He says, and he just kind of is looking around and he's thinking like I've been here for a while and I haven't heard anyone, so he'll just kind of say absentmindedly like Jermaine is the name of the cartographer here in town. Hello. And it'll echo off and he's just wondering how deep and far back this cave actually goes. And so he's just kind of looking around, waiting to see if someone will answer him.
Yeah, and then what's crazy is that he turns around because he thinks that he feels breathing on his back, and he thinks he heard what might sound like a rock falling in this cave, which would be a very normal sound to hear, but in fact it is the wooden cane that Jermaine uses, and he's behind him, and very old Greg style. What you doing in these waters? You know, kind of a thing there, and he's like, "How can I help you?"
Sorry, forgive me. Yes, hi, hello. My name is Duncan, and I'm told you're the finest cartographer, map maker in these parts. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Wonderful.
I could be better.
Oh, you could be, but well, it's always good to be seeking improvement constantly. The pursuit of perfection is the noble cause.
You have seen all of these walls. Yes,
very impressive.
Look left.
Okay.
Get closer.
He will approach closer.
This is the only area that is not mapped out.
Yes, Duncan will roll a perception check, fairly easy to tell, as he's looking around, and he's like, oh, yeah, that is weird. This is one blank wall, part of the wall. Yeah, why is this part blank?
It's the one place that I could never go.
Could never go? How do you mean?
I've been everywhere. As you can see, my amazing sunglasses look great on me. One is missing, but it works well. I cannot see where the sun god lives, and I cannot go there, but I must finish. My life's quest is to finish these maps on these walls.
A noble profession, indeed.
But your skin is too fair.
Yes, admittedly it is. Well, I mean, Duncan will look at his equipment and stuff and be like, I spend a fair amount of time up on the surface and, under the sun. It's rising, it's setting, and all that good. But, okay, yeah, the island of the sun god. Duncan will roll a religion check, and we'll say he kind of does middle of the road, so inconclusively, but he says, I might have to do some research to figure out where this sun god is, unless you know. Do you know where this place is?
I know you have to walk south. Perhaps get over some water with a boat or swimming. I dare not touch the water. And you go south until you can't anymore. The heat will blind you, and you will have to cover up so that you do not get burned or fried.
Okay, good to know, okay. And so you need help with this map, and I felt a pull to come here because this part of the Underdark is unfamiliar with me, so certainly, I'm happy to procure a map of this area, but it is my fatal flaw that I cannot refuse a quest, a task put before me, so by the gods, yes, I will accept your quest, I will accept your mission. And so Duncan will approach Jermaine, holding out his hand for a handshake. He's not sure if Jermaine is familiar with this custom or not.
Jermaine is familiar with the custom, but dislikes the custom. So Jermaine instead does the slap of the hand, the fist bump, and then a 1-2, kind of a little bit of a weird handshake.
And Duncan is awkwardly trying to follow along, but he's just not getting it. So
100%. He's also popped one of Jermaine's warts, which was quite painful.
Oh, I'm so sorry. He'll reach in his pouch and he'll procure a healing potion. He'll be like, this is a basic healing potion. Won't offset me that much, but here, I think it'll do more good for you than me at the moment.
Perfect. And Jermaine is now wondering if he's made his first ever friend, but he refuses for now.
And so then I suppose after getting some more details of where to go to find this island, getting the details of the local area that Duncan was hoping to get to then unlock potential other points of exploration here in the Underdark, he'll be like, all right, I'm off. I'll go back to the surface and I'll start heading south until the sun blinds me.
Perfect.
And scene.
Hey, that was fun.
Yeah, so there you go. What do you think of the random encounter and getting?
Is that actually D&D? That's actually how D&D goes?
Yeah, I mean there actually is. There'll be calls for dice rolls. Obviously, combat is its own thing, but yeah, that's basically D&D in a nutshell.
And so, what does the Forgive me for, I don't know if this is part of the podcast. I'm allowed to ask
Yeah.
questions or not.
It's final thoughts. So yeah, you've got thoughts. So tell me.
What do you call the person, the dungeon master?
The dungeon master is kind of like the referee, the adjudicator.
Are you a dungeon master?
I am a dungeon master. I mean,
And so will you, like in that scenario,
Mhm.
is it my character Jermaine and your character Duncan interacting, or is it the dungeon master who like is every character played by a person and the dungeon master is just kind of the ref?
I see. No, that's a very good question. So
You know what I mean? It's the dungeon master creating the story is what I'm asking, I guess.
well, I mean, certainly the dungeon master might have like a very good chunk of the lore of the story of the setting kind of all put together, but really, a good dungeon master will ask his players for like, hey, give me your character backstory or let me know kind of what are the goals and ambitions of your characters. Then that way I can weave that into the story and put seeds and plot hooks and stuff like that throughout the world. So then as your characters are naturally progressing and interacting with the world, they're like, wait a minute, there's a rumor of a treasure. Well, then, hey guys, I think we need, this thing with rats in the basement that could worry. There's treasure over here. We need to go after that. So then that,
Gotcha.
can lead on the adventure. But typically the dungeon master will control the non-player characters. So like if we were using Jermaine in a game and you were a different player character, you might be an adventurer. You might be like a Duncan figure. And then I would have controlled Jermaine and I would have been role playing, trying to tell you like, oh, hey, I'm a famous map maker. And, oh, this one blank spot. And if I could just get it, my life's work would be complete. And then I could still interact with you as a shopkeeper, merchant kind of person and get you whatever knowledge or maps you needed. But then if you accept my side quest and then complete it, you come back, you get your reward, yada, yada, yada. So
cool.
Kind of like the JRPGs that you may be familiar with, but it's old school. It's analog technology. Well, nowadays it's digital because you can use virtual tabletops and digital apps and programs and stuff like that to run it. But otherwise, I mean, really you just need a group of friends, some paper, some pencil, some dice, and your imaginations, really. So, yeah.
Cool. I'm surprised at how much I always kind of in the last few years as I'm getting to know some really good friends of mine who love this and do it often. I'm like, okay, I probably would enjoy it, but I'm surprised at how fun that kind of was. And I if I hung out with you one more time, I probably would get into some weird accent fun. You know what I mean? This is cool.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no. So this is final thoughts. So we like to ask our guests, what do they think of their experience? Any other feedback or critiques or anything like that? Certainly, I appreciate them.
I mean, I think you do a great job. Is the larger D&D community at large? Is it open to new people? Is it something that you know what I mean? Like, is it like let's teach this person, and they're more like, you know what I mean, or are they more like League of Legends, where the most like toxic community on the planet?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like there are communities that are like hard to enter.
Sure. I mean, I like to remain optimistic. I will say that, certainly within the tabletop gaming or D&D communities, yes, you're going to have your grognards. Those are the old veterans of the hobby. They've been around since like the 70s and stuff like that. And they may be set in their ways and, they may not like change or other, ideas or flavors that come into D&D, which is fine. If they want to play the game their way, they are more than welcome to. But on the whole, I would say the D&D community is meant to be very open and accepting of new people. Of course, with shows like Critical Role or these other actual play podcasts that exist, they're all inspiring people to enter into the hobby, introduce new people, new ideas, new concepts, just new, making it interesting and fun for people. And so, yes, while there are maybe individuals who have to be reminded of like, hey, this is a game and we're here to have fun with our friends and make friends and have community. And maybe this game isn't your game. That's okay. Maybe this table isn't your table. Maybe you don't gel with this group. That's completely fine. Maybe you need another game. Maybe you need another table. It's open, I would say. So cool. I would hope that would be encouraging to you and not discouraging of like, oh, if I go into this, I'm gonna get, I'm just gonna get the tar beaten out of me or something.
Sure. No, I think you answered it perfectly. And then how does the game end? How does a normal game, you know what I mean? Like in an RPG that I'm familiar with, there's a bunch of side quests, of course, but then there's an end game. You've beaten the boss. You've done what you had to do. How does a normal game end in D&D?
That's a great question. I think the best dungeon masters like to follow the example of cliffhanger from a television show of yore, maybe, Dragon Ball Z, kind of, will the heroes, like a pulp adventure, like, a story of like, will the heroes traverse the rickety bridge over the gorge? Will they be able to get the treasure? Are they going to rescue the blacksmith's daughter? Is the one player going to admit to the other player that they took the cursed magic item from their bag? Who knows? Next time on Dragon Ball Z. And so then the next time you gather, you just kind of pick up the story of like, okay, well, this is what we were doing last time, and we're back into the action. Some people hope that their D&D games never end, but of course we all have human needs, so it is important to make sure you get up and stretch your legs and drink water, maybe eat some Funyuns and stuff like that. And then, you play for a couple of hours, and then you're like, okay, cool, we've reached a good stopping point, a good cliffhanger. Okay, we'll pause the game there, and then we'll pick it up next time. And then everyone, can decompress and be like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. I can't, did you hear did you see what that character did? Oh, I got that. Yeah. And then everyone talks and gets giddy and excited, and they're already planning and scheming for the next time when they're back at the table.
You're getting me kind of intrigued.
Yeah,
this is cool.
For the very final thing, I always like to give the microphone, the platform, the stage, the soapbox to my guests. So anything you got to plug, whether it's socials and all that stuff, or websites or causes or projects, lay it on us and go.
Yeah, if people, beardedblevins.com, all one word, to find all my socials and our Twitch stream. We're live all the time, and we talk to the chat. So I'd love to talk to people about D&D and hear their thoughts on our character. That would be a ton of fun. Donate all of your money, all of it, every one of you, every cent to the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist in downtown Chicago, who are serving the poorest of the poor that I know of. And that's my plug.
Awesome. Well,
change the world.
Yeah. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. Love having you. Want to have you back, so that way I can get the progress report and figure out, just how many murder hobo characters you've been before you finally settled on like, okay, this is my real character. I've invested a lot of time and energy, and this character is here to stay.
We have to understand, I am the most loyal person I've ever met in my entire life. Born in Detroit, lived there for 6 years. So I'm diehard Detroit everything, even though I was only 6 when I left. Jermaine is it for me.
Oh, you're going to take Jermaine.
I'm Jermaine forever. Why would I create someone else? I'm Jermaine. I'm going to make some changes like that aren't dice related, maybe to Jermaine, and maybe even change his name, although I kind of like it. But I have a feeling you're going to be seeing some more of Jermaine.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and Overcast, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. If you would like to hail the bard, simply send an email to sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you please leave a review on iTunes to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, or you've never played Dungeons & Dragons before, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. And finally, after 2 years, I've decided to open a Patreon for Sidekicks and Side Quests. If you love this podcast and you want to help us grow and expand our operations, I would appreciate it if you would go on over to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Your name on the wall of the levitating platter, a loud hurrah on the podcast, or the possibility to introduce an element of chance to NPC creation. Sidekicks and Side Quests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy, meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the materials used are property Wizards of the Coast, copyright Wizards of the Coast, LLC. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sidekicks and SideQuest.